Next up, third talk of the session, we have Andrick, who's speaking remotely about privacy policies.
On evolution of composition, readability, and structure of policies over 2 decades. Uh, First, I'd like to introduce my co-authors and my advisors, Dr. Sanchari Das and Dr. Rinko Diori from University of Denver. And together in this paper, we are presenting a new approach, an approach with sentence level classification to uncover distinct composition, accessibility, and structural issue in privacy policies. So, privacy policies, this contains informations on different types of categories, like what information is being collected, used, and which of this information is shared with a third party, and how long this data is going to be retained, or what choice or control users have over these practices. Now, other than that, policies can also contain other important information, which can be quite useful. But despite being such an important document, users do not uh, use them regularly because of several reasons. This can be the complex and ambiguous language of policies, or the task of reading policies can be time consuming and often require college level of education to effectively find important information. So, advancement of natural language processing has promoted a new development in the area for information retrieval and user-friendly information. So among this development, classification of policy text is one of the most popular approach. Development of corpus such as OPP 115, which contains policies from 115 websites annotated at paragraph level, has also promoted development of many classification methodologies for policy paragraphs aimed at improving accessibility of information by labeling paragraphs with information category. Now, what we found that most of this works while our focus on paragraph level classification, there's a gap. And the gap is to investigate classification of privacy policies at a sentence level. Now, at a sentence level, we can analyze the organization and dependencies among different categories of sentence in a paragraph, which can then be related with overall coherence of information spread across the entire policy, thus giving us a chance to investigate policies at a granular level and understand aspects that eventually cause challenges for users. Now, another aspect of privacy policies that we found to be understudied is the effect of revision on different categories of information. Thus, we wanted to understand challenges and changes at a sentence categorical level by using a sentence level classification model. Thus, in this paper, we are presenting an approach that aims to deconstruct privacy policies with sentence classification. And as a first step towards that, we manually re-annotated nearly 10,000 sentences in OPP 115 corpus. And with the labeled sentences, we trained two state-of-the-art transformer-based deep learning model like AxelNet and BERT. We then evaluated both the model using 10 times 9 nested cross-validation using a 9:1 trained test split of corpus. And based on the evaluation, we found that AxelNet performed slightly better with an F1 score of 0.78. And thus, we proceeded with utilizing the entire label sentence to train an AxelNet model, which showed an F1 score of 0.90 for policies from Alexa top 10 websites and a F1 score of 0.94 for 2000 randomly chosen sentences. With the classification in hand, we proceeded with our evaluation. And for that, we used ppcrawl, which contained nearly 1 million policies from 1997 to 2019, and classified each policy sentence with our final AxelNet classifier. After classification, we studied how composition of policies have changed over time at a categorical level. We also analyzed the frequency of revisions in each of these categories and the magnitude of semantic change. Now, to obtain the magnitude of semantic change, we computed word movers distance between word embeddings for a particular category from two different versions of a policy. So if in a revision, the semantics of a particular category has, for example, changed drastically, then the word movers distance will be high as compared to a slight modification. Then we also looked at the readability of each category and how it has changed with time, as well as how organization of these categories of information and the policies have changed. Like organization, for the organization part, we used Altieri special entropy to quantify this organization, which utilizes the position of categories in to determine the order of information. So if the categories are aligned well, then the entropy will be less. We also analyze the coherence with self-attention mechanism. Basically, if related tokens or words are linked with related information with proper use of language, then the coherence score is higher. So if a particular sentence, for example, talking about personal information, is linked with another personal information sentence, then it promotes coherence. And lastly, we studied how paragraphs are composed with sentences from different categories. And to do that, we utilized co-occurrence metrics. So if a first-party collection sentence, for example, is placed with a user choice control sentence, then the intersection between the two categories in the matrix will be incremented by 1. And we did that for like every policy in the corpus across each year. Now, for more details on our analysis, please give our paper a look. But for now, I would like to present some of the interesting results. So we have found that categories with time are becoming more elaborate. So as we can see in this particular plot, the mean number of sentences for each category has increased with years. Now, for some categories, such as data retention, that is positive observation, because in the earlier years, the mean number of sentences for data retention was nearly 0, which means that policies were not effectively communicating how long the data is going to be stored, right? At the same time, some categories are still under address, and data retention is one of those. So looking at this particular plot, which shows the percentage of policies that have missing information with respect to categories, we can see that nearly 40% of the policies in the year of 2019 do not effectively communicate how long their data is going to be stored. Whereas policies are becoming much better in communicating third-party sharing practice, because nearly every policy communicate that. Coming back to the semantic change aspect of our analysis, in this plot, we are showing the percentage of policy which undergo changes in each category for a particular category. And what we have observed is that sentences belonging to a generic category tends to change more than other types of category. Following that, important categories such as user choice control sentences also tend to change more frequently, which means that as a user, I have to regularly keep up with policy revisions to be educated with control and choice options available to me. So to further complicate matters, I would like to bring your attention to heterogeneous composition of paragraph. So looking at simply user choice control sentence, we see that it is often placed with a category like first-party collection or third-party sharing, both of which tend to be quite long in nature. So detecting a minute change in, for example, user choice control sentence can be quite a hurdle. And we have indeed presented results in our work that indeed shows that. An example from Microsoft's privacy policy shows that it contains information from 2 different types of category. And the information by itself in the paragraph is not complete, because we cannot simply understand by looking at the paragraph where permission settings are, or like who are the Microsoft partners. So it promotes incoherence of information depending on how paragraphs are composed. And frequent changes in revisions lead to more difficulty, overall creating a very chaotic experience for users. So in conclusion, sentence level classification can be a vital tool to better understand how policies are composed from a paragraph level, and it also reveals information that is generally missed at a paragraph level. Organization of sentence categories can promote incoherence or ambiguity, and frequent minute changes may also go undetected. So based on this work, I'd also like to recommend some future directions. Firstly, the need to fine-tune sentence classification more by tackling low frequency of categories in the corpus, or by involving context information while training. Also, using a sentence level classification can also better help define policy articulation process, as we have revealed with sentence level classification, which are generally missed at a higher level, such as a paragraph level. So thank you, and thanks for listening to my talk. Any questions?
Reminder, questions should be written on Zulip. There currently are not any, so I guess I will go ahead and ask one. At this point in time, I think it's obvious that most privacy policies aren't really written for end users, and instead are probably better thought of as a tool for policymakers, public interest lawyers, experts, people in this community. And so, assuming that that's true, that you agree with that statement, does studying this from that vantage point differ in any way? You've framed this talk as, the experience of end users, but if they're not really the audience, does anything about what you presented change if, say, experts in this community are the real audience?
Based on my understanding, privacy policies are meant to be user-facing, and yeah, these policies are often composed by lawyers, and often those are the general audience. But at the same time, if these are composed such that it's easier for users to understand what's happening with your data, or how it is being stored or used, then it can promote not only confidence, but also articulating policies in a better fashion may also remove some of the highlight some of the issues currently in the domain as well. So the final idea is to work towards methodologies or frameworks that can automate the task of finding discrepancy in policy sentences or something which is risky. And to do that, basically, we have to build from ground up with sentence level classification and proceed with information extraction. I hope I answered your question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? There are people nodding, but there's nothing on Zulip. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't scroll all the way to the bottom. Okay, while the originating OPP 115 dataset was in fact annotated by graduate law students, did you work with any additional policy scholars to contextualize your additional annotations or upon analysis of the findings?
No. So this was done by me and a group of graduate students, basically reaffirming the annotations. So.
Okay. Next question. What are your thoughts on privacy nutrition labels as we try to reduce user burden? Will your method still work in this case?
So privacy nutrition label can be quite useful, right? But at the same time, you need policy authors to incorporate it in their privacy policies. So why not depend on them and utilize developments in NLP and machine learning to generate that process automatically? So that can be quite encouraging for users as well.
Okay. Last question. Anecdotally, I've noticed that many privacy policies are copy-pastes of each other. Did you also notice those correlations across this large corpus?
Yeah. So what we notice is that the introductory and generic statements that I mentioned, those tend to be copy-pasted from so there are sentences in there which shouldn't belong in a privacy policy. Those are unnecessarily increasing the length of policies, right? So the idea is to discard those. And the copy paste part is also promoting that kind of behavior, especially across revisions where there is outdated practice, but it's still in the policy because of not taking proper care while copy pasting this information.
Okay, let's thank the speaker again.